Yeah. Yeah. I just had a couple questions. I mean, I'm a Christian brother. And so I do like to evangelize. I like to share the gospel with people. And I got invited by one of my friends. He was a Muslim. He was trying to get me to come on and ask some questions for you, to you.
Right, sure.
So
you want to ask me questions?
Yeah.
Or you want to evangelize to me? Which one is it?
No, I just want to ask questions.
Sure.
The main question is essentially, why do you believe that Islam is true?
Why do I believe that Islam is the truth? Well, there's multiple different reasons. Have you checked the videos on my channel? There's many videos where I talk about that on my channel. I have a very specific video as well. It's called Compelling Evidences for the Truthfulness of Islam. I'm hoping that you have checked that or looked at it before you came on the stream.
Yeah, there was a video I watched, I believe, where it's like sharing like things like nothing couldn't be made unless there was a creator, things like that.
No, specifically about why Islam is the truth, not why we believe in a creator. Because these are two separate things.
Yes.
I mean, it's a commonality between us and Christians and Jews and like Hindus and every other religion that believes in a God, that we believe in a God. So if I bring evidence that there is a creator, this is just like a theistic thing that all theists would agree upon. Now, on the other hand, I have many videos where I talk about why specifically Islam is the truth. But I'm going to give just a quick summary to basically why Islam is the truth. Islam is the truth for few reasons. Or I'm just going to give some of them because there's many evidences why Islam is the truth. Let's say, for instance, the Quran talks about the future. The Quran and Hadith talk about the future. There's multiple prophecies of the future that Prophet Muhammad made and the Quran made. These prophecies do not only like include the time of Prophet Muhammad, but hundreds of years after him, and even today, 1,400 years later, we see these things happening the way the Prophet said them. The difference between them and biblical prophecies, for example, is that they're not vague. They're clear and specific, many of which are actually time-bound and individual-bound. Unlike what many Christians, sadly, I see what they do is that they look at the reality and they put it on the verse. No, I'm not talking about that. We're talking about clear verses or clear prophecies of the future that indicate certain realities. Now, none of the prophecies the Prophet ﷺ made also are false. None of them are false. They're numerous and they're before the time. So that's one example of why Islam is the truth. Another example is the Quran itself. Its miraculous nature. Its challenge of inimitability. Nobody can bring a scripture like the Quran. Nobody can imitate it. That challenge was there for 1,400 years and remains until today. And you don't have to be a Muslim to undergo this channel. There's Arabic-speaking Jews, Arabic-speaking Christians, Arabic-speaking atheists, and Arabic-speaking professors in Oxford. And those people, none of them have been able to produce something like the Quran, imitate it, or bring a chapter like it or a scripture like it. Also, the Quran's description of the world, things that are created, natural phenomena. Quran's description of mountains, the sky, stars, the galaxy, the universe, essentially things which we are, I would say, learning today to keep up with the Quranic knowledge. So it's not the other way around. It's that what we're learning today is trying to keep up with the Quranic knowledge. Yeah, another example is history in the Quran. There's many things that are mentioned in the Quran, historical realities and facts that are not mentioned in previous scriptures, for instance, not mentioned in the Bible, not mentioned in Jewish scripture, and the Prophet couldn't have accessed them for various reasons. For instance, we couldn't read hieroglyphics at the time. The information was in temples which was buried under the sand. It was in languages which was dead at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He couldn't speak it. So the Quran has many information about the past like this. The life of the Prophet ﷺ, as an example, if you are a believer in God, in this case, we're talking about evidences for Islam, so we're talking about that God already exists. We're assuming the existence of God.
Yes.
So looking at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you are unable to essentially bring any alternative other than the fact that he was a messenger of God if you study his life. So if you study his life and you look at, okay, what was the possible reasons why he wouldn't have been a messenger of God? So if you exhaust all of these options, you will have no option except to accept the reality that he was a messenger of God. There's no other alternative rational option, is the claim that I'm making, basically. The systems of Islam that Islam brings up, for example, of how to live your life, of how to do dealings, whether it is with interest, with buying and selling and contracts and politics, everything together. cannot come from a man, a Bedouin Arab who lived 1,400 years ago. It cannot come from him, essentially, if you study these systems that Islam offers. So these are many reasons. Like I said, there's many, many reasons. And each of these types of reasons will have explanations and examples to give. So I'm just giving different types, and each type will have different. Like we talk about prophecies, there's tens, for example, of prophecies that you can produce. Talk about histories, multiple examples we can give. Talk about the Quran talking about certain things in the natural world. There's tens of examples that can be given. So I'm just giving different, categories of evidences, and all of these are why Islam is the truth without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay. So I wrote down just a couple of these things. So prophecy. Then you said the Quran is perfected and it can't be replicated, and then you're saying that
imitated,
strong
not
evidence.
Imitated. Yeah.
Okay, imitated. Yeah, it can be imitated.
Because replicated is writing the same thing, right? Like you want to copy it word for word. I mean, that anybody can do that. But we're talking about imitating the Quranic stylistic.
Yes.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead. Just it's an important correction. That's why I said it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thank you for that. Then you also said that you can't deny like Muhammad is a prophet. Like it's undeniable that he's.
No, I said if you study the Prophet's life,
okay,
and you try to exhaust the options, he was a messenger of God or he wasn't a messenger of God, you can only come to one rational conclusion that he was a messenger of God. Basically, you cannot bring an alternative. If you tell me he wasn't a messenger of God, you will not be able to offer a rational explanation. That's the claim I'm making, basically.
Okay. Well, so for prophecy, we have prophecy in the Bible as well. Like Jesus would be sold for 30 pieces of silver. He would be betrayed by a close friend.
Okay. You want me to comment on these prophecies? Because I don't consider what you said as a prophecy.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Oh, can you present the verse that you said about the pieces of silver?
Oh, the 30 pieces of silver? I don't have it off the top.
Whichever prophecy you want. Yeah, whichever prophecy. I'm going to show you basically why I'm rejecting what you're presenting as prophecies that they're not actually. They don't withstand reasoning if you actually criticize them.
Okay, let's see. So there's a prophecy here. It's Zechariah 11:12 and 11:13.
Can you read it for us?
Yeah. And I'll open this up. Okay, so Zechariah 12 says, "And I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter a goodly price, that I was priced at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord." So.
Okay. So this seems to me that Zechariah is talking about. You see the heading, 2 shepherds, and it's talking about buying and selling something. This is what it seems to me. So how is this a prophecy?
So it's pointing to the fact that Jesus Christ would be sold for 30 pieces of silver.
And how did you come to that conclusion? Where does the verse that talks about buying and selling sheep in Zechariah, a prophecy about Jesus being bought and sold, how did you make that connection?
Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that. It's right at the top of my head here, but
no, that's the whole reason I asked you. That is the thing. When I talked about prophecies, I highlighted something when I was speaking. I said, unlike what Christians do, which read something into the text. I don't know if you noticed me saying that or not, but I said it for a reason. Because Christians don't really have any clear prophecies of Jesus. Nothing you can present that can actually and I challenge you, bring me even one prophecy, one clear prophecy about Jesus. You're not going to be able to present it rationally. The minute I criticize it, I'm going to realize that you are like essentially presenting something which has nothing to do with the reality.
So, well, there's another one here, Isaiah 7:14, that says that Jesus would be born of a virgin. So it says, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel."
Sure. Perfect. Okay, I love that. So can you show me where is Jesus called Emmanuel? Who did his mother or anyone ever in the New Testament call Jesus Emmanuel? I want one person.
we don't call him Emmanuel. Emmanuel.
No. The verse says he shall be called Emmanuel. If I say you will have a son and he will be called Lucas, but nobody calls him Lucas, then we're talking about two different people here.
Okay. So Emmanuel is more like a title because it just means the Lord is with us.
No, it's not. And my name, Muhammad, means the praised one. It doesn't mean it's not a name. Just because a name has a meaning, it doesn't remove the fact that it's a name. I mean, I know this is how Christians try to like escape the idea, but most of the Hebrew names and the names of prophets have meaning. That doesn't mean anything. Like just because a name has a meaning, it doesn't mean it's not a name. Are there people today called Emmanuel, or do we say that it's not the name because
of course,
Emmanuel means God?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. So it's a name.
That's not how we interpret it, though. We recognize it to be that.
Well, it's not about interpreting. If you present a prophecy, you say, here's a prophecy. The conditions of the prophecy are two. Born of a virgin called Emmanuel. Okay, now we need someone who fits that prophecy, being born of a virgin and called Emmanuel. Is there someone who is fitting that prophecy so far? No. I can bring someone who's called Emmanuel. I'll tell you, look, he is fitting the other half of the prophecy. You have someone who's fitting half of the prophecy about being born of a virgin. I have someone who fits the other half called Emmanuel. We need someone that fits the two criteria of the prophecy. Otherwise, you are misrepresenting the prophecy. Do you have other prophecies? I'm happy to hear. Just bring me one prophecy about Jesus. Just one.
So there's another one here. Let's see. So the prophecies that he would be pierced, or that they would look upon him who's pierced, it goes more into the future in Revelation, where there's talking about the Jews and how they're going to look upon the one who.
You realize the revelation is later after Jesus, not before.
Yes, but
so that's not a prophecy.
The verb is pierced here, so Jesus was pierced while he was on the cross.
Yeah, so we're talking about something in the past.
Yes, exactly.
So how's that prophecy?
So here in Zechariah, it would have been a prophecy because this is still before Jesus was born. That he would be pierced on the cross.
No, you said revelation. So what does Zechariah say?
So in Zechariah, this is Zechariah 12:10. Here it says, "And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn." So Jesus is pierced on the cross, right? Like the nails in his hands and feet, right?
I'm sorry, but I want you to listen to what you're saying. Just because the verse mentions the word pierced, you cannot then therefore say, therefore this prophecy is about him. Right now, I'm going to bring someone to pierce me, and then I'm going to say this is a prophecy about me because I was pierced. You see the reasoning. The prophecy is pierced, Jesus is pierced, therefore the prophecy is about him. Like, it doesn't work like that. I'm sorry to say. Look, what's happening, Anthony, is you're just demonstrating what I was telling you. What Christians do, and it's really sad, what many Christians do is they believe something and they impose it on the text. That's why you have the Jewish people. You go to any Jewish person. Is that how you understand it? It's like, this. They will tell you this has nothing to do with the description. The scriptures say. This verse is about two shepherds selling sheep. This other verse is specific metaphorical description of God and the issues that happen between God and children of Israel. Look, wherever you go, you realize that these verses have no connection to Jesus. But you'll have the Christians somehow telling us that this is a prophecy.
Okay, so you just deny all the prophecy in the Bible? None of this is accurate?
I don't deny anything. I make the claim that you don't have anything of substance. And that's why I said, go ahead if you want to disprove that. You're welcome to show me. I mean, you're not the first Christian that I talk to about prophecies, But like there is no prophecies. And each prophecy that they bring forth, actually, they will always contradict the life of Jesus or contradict something about Jesus, or it will be so general that it can be applied to anyone.
Okay.
And by the way, we believe Jesus is the Messiah. We believe he can be prophesied by previous prophets. We don't have a problem with that. But you not having evidence and me believing something because of Islam is two separate things. I don't believe it because you can show me prophecies. I believe it because I'm a Muslim. So that's a complete different foundation for my belief. But you on your own, if I wasn't a Muslim, you're not going to be able to present me a single prophecy of Jesus.
Oh,
Do you know
okay.
who's prophesied? Do you know who's clearly prophesied in the biblical scriptures today?
Well, you're probably gonna say Muhammad.
Yeah. I mean, if we cannot find the prophecy about Jesus, but there are prophecies about Prophet Muhammad, even though that scripture has changed. But you can still point out to the coming of Prophet Muhammad in that scripture.
Yeah. Well, the Quran says that Muhammad was prophesied, right?
Not in the
Torah.
Bible, in the Torah and the Injil, yes.
Mhm.
The Bible is a separate book, obviously. Torah and the Injil are different things.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then, what are prophecies in the Quran that you think are super specific and point to?
Sure. So the categories of prophecies in Islam are different, many different categories. Some categories will be, for example, about, let's say, nations that Islam will spread in. Some prophecies will be about specific individuals. Some prophecies will be about developments that will happen. Some prophecies will be specifically about the geology of the earth and how it will change and stuff like that. I'll give you a few examples. So, for instance, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that you will see the deserts of Arabia returning to being meadows and rivers. Now, there's two things actually here being mentioned, not one. Prophet is making two claims. Claim number one, that it used to be meadows and rivers. And claim number two, that it will come back to being meadows and rivers. Now, we know for a fact that it used to be meadows and rivers. Why? Because if you Google right now, put nature Middle East, the greening of Saudi Arabia, it will show you an article that we find fossils of animals that can only live in abundant water. We're talking about like elephants and like hippos or whatever. All fossils of animals that can only live if there's abundance of water. And then they will show you traces of 10,000 Asian lakes that we saw with satellites. They will say around 5,000 years ago, this deserts of Arabia used to be meadows and rivers. So Prophet Muhammad didn't have a satellite to look at the, obviously, the 10,000 Asian lakes or to check the fossils of which animal they are or whatever. He didn't have access to any of these things, but he made that claim and it's accurate. Then you can go to NASA. They have an article. It's called The Greening of Saudi Arabia. And you can Google it right now. And it will show you pictures of Saudi Arabia. And it will show you yellow. And it's turning green from 1960 or 70 or whatever till today. It's completely turning green. How is this happening? It's happening, of course, but many factors. Some people tell you global warming, other factors. Technology, we're able to access the water deep within the earth. Technology, like they're actually carrying mountains of ice from the North Pole or whatever and bringing it to the deserts of Arabia. Things which were impossible to happen in the past, but they are happening today, which are all fulfilling this prophecy of Prophet Muhammad. For instance, like I said, nations that will become Muslim. Prophet Muhammad named where Islam will spread by definition. So Prophet Muhammad said that Islam will enter Egypt specifically. He said Iraq specifically. He said Sham, which is Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. He said India and Pakistan. He said Constantinople specifically, which is Turkey, present-day Turkey. And he said that you will overcome the Roman and Persian Empire. Muslims will overcome the Roman and Persian Empire. And that's exactly what happened. He said that the Persian king in that region and the Roman king in that region, when they're defeated, they will be the last one. When they die, they will be the last one in that region. And that's what happened historically. He said there will be no more Caesar, basically, after that one, in that specific region when he's defeated. And about also Kurusu or whatever, however you pronounce his name, of the Persian king. They will be the last one. And this is what happened exactly historically. There are prophecies of Prophet Muhammad that we can see happening today. So Prophet Muhammad talked about the widespread of sexual immorality that will happen in the end of times. And then he said, when that happens, new diseases will emerge that didn't exist in the ancestors of the people. So now you can talk about monkeypox and all of these new STDs that didn't exist, that are new advent because of sexual immorality that we are engaging in and spreading. These are all fulfillment of the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad that he's saying. Now there are many prophecies of Prophet made about specific individuals. So that there was an individual called Suraq ibn Malik, and he was essentially trying to kill the Prophet. He was a bounty hunter. And when the Prophet left Mecca to Medina, they sent him after the Prophet. And then when he was about to capture the Prophet, something happened and he couldn't. Basically, his horse kept sinking in the sand. A miraculous act. He realized there's something about this man, essentially. He's not just a normal human being. But then the Prophet made a prophecy about him specifically. He said that he will hold the bracelets of the Persian king. Now, some people cannot understand how magnificent this prophecy is, because it's like me talking to like some guy in the, Eskimos or whatever, and I'm telling him you'll sit in the chair of Trump or something. The Persian king was the strongest man on earth at the time, right? And this is just a Bedouin bounty hunter in the deserts of Arabia. And the Prophet is telling him, you will hold those bracelets in your hand. And that exactly happened the way the Prophet ﷺ foretold it. Now, that Suraqa ibn Malik, he became a Muslim. He fought with Muslims. Prophet ﷺ passed away. He didn't die. He could have died of diseases, could have died in any of the battle. He remained alive. The first caliph of Islam, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, took the leadership. And he remained alive. He fought with the Muslims, nothing. In the second caliph of Islam, Umar al-Khattab, his time came and Muslims conquered Persia. And then the bracelets was given to him and he wore the bracelets or held the bracelets in his hand as the Prophet ﷺ foretold that he will. And this is specific, very specific prophecy about a very specific individual. There's so many things that can go wrong. Obviously, the most important thing that we don't overcome the Persian Empire, which is the strongest empire anyways. But other examples, like I said, is in relation to the guy himself. He could die of disease, he could die in battle, he could die in many, many other ways. So like I said, the prophecies are many, and they talk about different things. But the common factor between all of them that is specific, like I'm giving you examples, and they all happen the way the Prophet ﷺ said that they will happen. Yeah, and if you want more, I'm happy to give you more. It's a very easy thing to do.
Yeah, well, those are interesting. I haven't heard about those ones specifically. The Egypt one is interesting to me. The one of the ones I want to ask you about. So there's supposed to be like Muhammad's supposed to split the moon in half at some point. I don't remember what where he does that, but
yeah. So that's not a prophecy. That's obviously like you can say a miraculous act Prophet ﷺ did. Yeah, like we say Jesus walking water or multiplying food or whatever. Prophet ﷺ did many of these things as well when he was alive, and his people witnessed. Now, one of those things is the splitting of the moon, but it's not the Prophet splits the moon, it's God splitting the moon. We don't believe Prophet Muhammad himself is the one who split the moon. We believe all the miraculous acts is happening by God. God is the one doing the acts. Just like when Jesus was doing something, it wasn't him, it was God doing the acts. Jesus had no power on his own to do anything. He was a human being. So the disbelievers of Quraysh were shown a sign by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and there were eyewitnesses to it, believers and disbelievers. We have multiple narrations about this, is that basically the moon was parted into two pieces, and then Allah rejoined it after as a sign for those people to see, to believe. And the Quran mentions that in Surah Al-Qamar, in the chapter Al-Qamar, where it says that the day of judgment is come near and the moon has split. And then it talks about the disbelievers. If they see a sign, they turn away and they say magic. So this is basically was the case with the disbelievers of Quraysh. Yeah, so that's one of the miraculous acts that happened. Yes.
Okay. Do you think we should see evidence of the moon having been split?
What kind of evidence would you like to see of a past event where God has separated the moon into two parts and then joined it together? What kind of evidence do you expect to see?
Maybe like a giant fissure or something on the moon, splitting it like down the middle. Like a giant fissure on the moon, like a crack.
Why would that be there? Why would that be there? If God rejoined it, does God it's like like imagine a glass and a glass splits in two, and then you put some glue so you can find the place of that the crack is still there. That's obviously not a good job of rejoining the cup, is it? Now, God is a perfect being. God can rejoin the moon and make it hold perfectly the way it was. Why do you need to have a crack on the moon? I don't get the logic there.
Well, the point is just evidence that the miracle had taken place, right?
We don't need evidence. Why do we need evidence? We don't rely on the splitting of the moon as evidence, primary evidence why Islam is the truth. We don't do that. You asked me about the evidence for Islam, for example, and I gave you all of these different types and examples. Did I mention anything about the splitting of the moon?
No. I brought that up.
Yeah, not only that, did I mention anything about the Prophet ﷺ multiplying food or the water gushing out from between the Prophet's hand? Or rocks or stones speaking in the hands of the prophet, or I can go on and on and on. These were things that happened at the life of the prophet. You cannot see them today. I cannot see them today. So you can just say, I don't believe in that report. And that's it. And then I don't have anything to essentially, prove to you for a fact that this event happened. However, the other prophecies I'm giving you, these are historical realities that I can demonstrate, and you cannot argue back against them, if that makes sense. So they're objective in that case. That's why if a Christian comes to me and says, Jesus is God because he's resurrected, you cannot prove that. Sorry to say, you can say that all you want, but you cannot prove that he's resurrected. You cannot say Jesus was God because he multiplied food. You cannot say Jesus was God because he turned water into wine, or whatever miracle you want to talk about. These are all accounts that you cannot prove them to me today or demonstrate them to me to prove that Jesus is actually from God or God.
Okay. So, well, I guess the only other point was because you were saying that, like Muhammad, it's undeniable that he's a prophet, or like it's. I'm
saying you cannot give me another. I'm going to repeat it again in a simple way. You cannot give me any rational alternative. If you study the prophet's life, you cannot give me another rational alternative other than the fact that he was a messenger of God. If you say he wasn't a messenger, you have to give me a rational case after studying his life. Meaning, why would he be doing what he was doing if he wasn't a messenger of God? If that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I think one of the main things about a prophet is that they perform miracles, right? So
sure. And I was just talking to you about the miracles of the Prophet Muhammad, such as the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad, such as the information of the past of the Prophet Muhammad, such as the Quran, which is a living miracle till the end of time. I mean, such as all of the information about the life that we are studying and looking at. All of these are the evidences I'm giving you. All of these are miracles by definition.
So the Quran itself is a miracle to you.
Quran is the biggest miracle, of course. Okay.
So how do we know?
I was just telling you why is the miracle. I was just giving you the reasons why is the miracle.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question, like, can any human being tell you the future, foretell you the future exactly the way it happened, specifically the way the Prophet did?
The way that
if he wasn't from God. Yeah. Can any human being tell you the future specifically and clearly and make tens of prophecies, all of them are accurate? If he wasn't sent by God, if this information doesn't come from God, can human beings do it on their own? Is that possible?
Well, no. That's part of the way that we recognize prophets. In Deuteronomy 18, it tells us that if a prophet says something that doesn't come to pass, he's not a prophet. So all of the things that prophets say has to come to pass.
Yeah, precisely. So that's the point I was making about Prophet Muhammad being a prophet. This is the miracles. This is one example of a miracle.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. What was I going to say? I had another question for you.
But evidence does not only need to be a miracle. So that's the claim I was making. We can also use our God-given common sense and rationality to come to a conclusion that something is true. Do you disagree with that?
That we can use our rational thinking? Of course, we can use our rational thinking to try to.
And common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you the example I was making, or the argument I was making, is using rationality and common sense. You cannot deny the fact that Prophet Muhammad was a prophet of God after studying his life. That's the point I was making, basically. Yes. You cannot come with another alternative. You cannot claim he was doing it for money. You cannot claim he was doing it for worldly things. You cannot claim he was lying. You cannot claim he was delusional, or any of these things. If you study his life is already refuting all of these things. Does that make sense? So if you want to say he isn't a messenger of God and you believe in God, and he came and he told people to worship God alone, and he told people to give charity, and he told people to believe in Jesus and Moses and Noah, and that Satan is your enemy, and all of these things, you're going to have to tell me, why was he doing that? You're going to have to give me a rational reason, an explanation to why would he be doing that if he wasn't a messenger of God, if that makes sense. And why would God allow him, of course, to continue in doing that as well? Because God exposes false prophets.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
he exposes liars. Yeah.
So, well, I guess some things I've heard is that Muhammad, like, he describes how if he was not a real messenger of God, that he would be striked in his aorta. And then there's a verse in I believe it's the Hadith, where he's dying, and then when he's dying,
Okay.
he says he feels as though his aorta has been severed or cut, something like that.
Sure. So that's completely inaccurate in every way. That's what I can say. First, it's not the Prophet Muhammad describes, it's Allah in the Quran saying. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا. I'm going to tell you the verse now, and I'm going to tell you how ridiculous this argument is. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ. If the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ were to make up some stories about us, lie basically about God, if you were to fabricate certain things, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ. We will seize him by his right hand, meaning we will take his life. And the lam there in the Arabic language, لَأَخَذْنَا, that means we'll do it instantly. So if the Prophet, if he lies, if he just thinks about lying, we'll instantly take his life. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. Then, ثُمَّ here is for something that happens after something else. Okay? That's very important here, because the verse is giving us an order of two things. First, God will take his life, then God will cut his iota. Okay? Not God will cut his iota, then take his life. No. The verse says, ثُمَّ, which is for order here. That one thing will happen after another. And it's called الترتيب مع التراخي. That something will happen after a while from another thing. Okay? So what will happen instantly? That God will take his life. The second thing that will happen, God will cut his wateen. The word used in the Quran is what? Wateen. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. Okay? And then Allah says none of you can basically prevent us from doing that. Basically, no one can stop God if God wanted to do that. Okay? So here is the argument. Now, what is the story now about the story that these Christian apologists and liars, what is the story they bring up? They bring Prophet ﷺ, when he was dying, after Prophet Muhammad ﷺ completed the entire mission of giving his message, and the last verse of the Quran was revealed, and the Prophet ﷺ told the Muslims that he is going to die, that God revealed to him that he's going to die. All of this happened, yeah? After all of this happened, when the Prophet ﷺ was dying in his last sickness, he said he feels some of the poison that he was poisoned by a Jewish woman. And then he says, I feel as if. What does as if mean?
It's like, it feels like something's happening. Yeah. It's
does
not
it mean that,
accurate depiction.
Does it mean that something is happening? Does that mean that thing is happening? Okay.
No.
So then he said, as if my abhar, which is not the wateen, these are two different veins, are being separate. So he doesn't not say the same vein, he says a different one, but he doesn't only not say a different one, but he also says that as if is being separate. It doesn't say it is being separate, he says as if it's being separate. Okay? Then the Prophet refers to that poison. Do you know what that poison is? That poison happened to the Prophet ﷺ in the year of Khaybar. So that was, let's say, 7 AH. So let's say 3 to 4 years before the death of the Prophet. There was a Jewish woman that said that if I'm going to poison this man, and if he's a true messenger of God, he wouldn't die. Okay? So she came and she brought food with poison. Prophet ﷺ was there and his companion was there. His companion ate and he died instantly. Because it's poison. He ate from the food and he died instantly. Then the Prophet ﷺ, the meat itself informed the Prophet, which was a miracle, that the meat is poison. Then the Prophet ﷺ asked her why she did that. Then she admitted, she said obviously she was testing the Prophet ﷺ if he was a messenger of God. So he's referring to that poison because the Prophet ate from it first. But he didn't die. Like the companion that died. So that's another miracle. So you have 2 miracles there. in that report alone. And the Prophet didn't die. So he was referring that he still feels, when he's dying already, is his sickness of his death anyways, he completed the message. Now, the verse says what? If the Prophet were to make anything about us up, God will kill him. God is not going to wait until he delivers the entire message and then say to the people, okay, I'm dying, and the last verse of the Quran is revealed. That you see how ridiculous the argument is when you break it down, basically, the argument that these people are making. It's all you need to do is just to read. To read the argument itself, to read the verses of the Quran, to read the actual events, and you realize how these two things have no relation to one another, essentially.
Yeah, okay. So you said the words in Arabic, it was atween, and then what was the other one for the...
Wateen, and abhar. Wateen and abhar.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, it doesn't matter, even if it's the same word. Let's assume it was wateen in both of them. It's not wateen, but let's assume it's wateen. How does the argument hold? The argument doesn't hold still. Doesn't matter. Because the Prophet completed his message. This was not that after he lied, God took his life and then severed his iota. That didn't happen. And the Prophet said, as if. He didn't say it's happening. He said, as if. So I'm saying, even if it was the wateen, you have no argument, basically. Like, whichever way you want to look at it, there's no argument there.
Okay. Let's see here. So do you defend Aisha as well, like the Prophet's relationship?
Okay, before you bring up like or regurgitate all of these like claims about Islam or whatever, which were answered a million times, you asked me an important question first. You asked me for the evidences for Islam being the truth, and I presented you evidences for Islam being the truth. Now, my question to you will be, before we go into the same question that every like Christian asks 24/7, is like day and night, they're sleeping and waking up asking the same thing about Aisha. It's like I don't know, it's like it's their daily reminder. Aisha 24/7. And we answered that a million times. Like it doesn't work anymore. You got to come up with something new. We've already talked about that a billion times before. So now, what prevents you now from accepting the evidences that it's been established to you that Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God?
Well, for me, I have a personal encounter with Christ, so I'm a little bit different in the way that I perceive these things because of my own personal experience, right?
You realize that your own personal experience does not negate the fact that the evidence of Islam makes it true.
No,
it's completely irrelevant.
From the way that I view it, the story of Muhammad encountering the angel in the mountain, and like that's like the piece that I genuinely care about. If like Islam was true, that Muhammad actually has to receive true divine revelation from God, and so the stories of angels in the past are generally that people start to worship them, or the angel says like, do not be afraid. But then in Muhammad's story in the hadith, it's like
that's not true. Well, but let's assume that was true. That's not true at all. But let's assume that was true, actually, and that was the case. Does that negate the fact that Prophet Muhammad presented evidence that he's prophet of God? If he presented evidence that he was a prophet of God, why does it matter if an angel did something new in this encounter? How does that change the fact that he's a prophet of God?
Well, that to me, if it has to be, that has to be true. Like he actually has to have that encounter. Because if it's not actually with a genuine...
Yeah, the evidence that he had the encounter is what I was telling you. The prophecies of the future, the knowledge about the history, the knowledge about the what God created, the earth, the moon, the stars, all of these things. So all of these things are mentioned in the Quran and in the Hadith are the evidence. So that proves the encounter by default. Because if he didn't have the encounter, he wouldn't be able to bring these things. Like it's as simple as that. If this encounter wasn't true, that he didn't have divine revelation, he wouldn't be able to bring divine knowledge. So if there is divine knowledge, we've already established the encounter is true.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm on the camp similar to your kind of points with the Bible. Is essentially the prophecies are quite vague.
Okay. So go ahead, tell me which prophecy is vague. Give me an example.
Which prophecy is vague?
Yeah, with the ones I gave you, which one is vague? Or in general, which one is vague?
There's the one where it's like they're supposed to be building the towers in the desert. That one always.
Did I say anything about towers in the desert?
No. But you said I can.
So let's stick to what I said. I give you multiple examples of prophecies that are not about towers in the desert, and there are tens and tens more. So assuming there is a prophecy about towers in the desert that you think is vague, it doesn't change the fact that there's tens of others that are clear. How does that doesn't change the argument at all?
Well, all of the prophecies have to be essentially true. They all have to come true. They all have to be real, right? For the prophet to be a true prophet.
Yeah, they have to be real, but nobody says that every single one of them has to be explicit, clear in every way. It can be clear and it can be true, but to you, from your own personal subjective idea in this case, but you think it's not clear. It doesn't change the fact that all of the other ones are true.
Okay.
And since you care about vague, then how do you believe in Jesus when there's not a single prophecy about him in the Old Testament? We're gonna literally just give you tens of prophecies that are clear, or multiple prophecies that are clear, and I can give tens. Yes.
I guess for me at least, like I said, the personal experience kind of does give a lot more openness. Even though after I had my personal experience, I didn't actually fully accept Christ immediately. It was after that when I came to Christ.
Did you know the Hindu who had a personal experience with the cow and the cow dung? He had his own personal experience as well. Why don't you follow Hinduism?
Well, of course, I think personal experience.
His personal experience was if he eats cow dung, it will cure cancer.
That's fine.
I'm not even. You're laughing, but that's what he said.
Little bit eat. Scientific test for it's for not coming for cancer.
So why don't you start eating cow dung? I think maybe it'll be good for you. Why don't you start eating cow dung as well? He had a personal experience.
So of course,
see how ridiculous it is.
Well, I'm not saying other people's personal experience, right? Because this is my personal.
Yours is beyond everything else, right? Yours is the absolute truth. Everyone else is just like delusional, huh?
Well, not when I had that experience. No.
So let me get this straight, right? I'm not going to accept Islam that has all of these objective evidences that are demonstrable that I cannot argue against or refute, even though it is the truth, because whatever my personal experience is makes sense to me, right? So this is your argument.
Well, yeah, that's a subjective view on it, and I acknowledge that that's not that doesn't necessarily make true, right? Like just because I had a personal experience doesn't necessarily make true, but it feels very, very true to me, right? That's the point essentially. So I used to suffer from like really severe depression, anxiety, and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
sorry, I'm sorry to say not the full experience, because it's always the same story about you being depressed and being a drug addict and being a murderer or a rapist or whatever. I'm not saying you. This is the usual story. Whatever the crimes that you did, Jesus comes in your dream, and then you feel this peace, and then you believe in Jesus. Is that what happened?
Essentially, yeah.
Thank you. So I don't know you, I never met you in my life, but you guys need a new script, because you always repeat the same script, and for some reason, like you really need a new script because it doesn't work anymore. You know, look, I have a good imagination. If you guys need me, I'll write you like some nice script, like about a new way of like how he came to the truth, other than the usual kind of story, right? Because like honestly, like you have, even Paul tells you that the devil will come to you as the angel of light and deceive you and tell you nonsense. My friend, like dreams are not like, some guy saw yesterday in his dream that he was a potato walking, and someone was cooking him in the oven. Doesn't mean your dream is true, my friend. Need to wake up, come back to reality. All right, we have common sense. We live in reality, not in dreams. So I'm trying to like help you here by give you evidences, and sometimes you have to make fun of little ridiculous concepts to try to kind of wake you up. It's not that the point is not to make fun of you, it's to make you understand how ridiculous statements that you're making are, because you could be so delusional that you're so infatuated with something that you need other people to kind of make you realize that you're not on the same reality as everyone else. When someone is delusional, he believes something is true contrary to the evidence that it is. So you need a reality check from people around you to wake you up a little bit. That's not the case. This is not true. And come back to reality, please, because person can see in his dream that the Antichrist is God, and he starts worshiping him. Another person, he says his grandfather is God, and then he says, I'm going to worship my grandfather because he came to me in a dream and I felt peace. It doesn't change anything. I'll give you 1,000 videos of people who say, I saw Prophet Muhammad in my dream and I felt this way and this happened and that happened. How does that make Islam true?
I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with the point that you're making. I think you make a very valid point. I think it's funny that someone would want to worship cow poop, right? So the personal experience, I think for the individual is going to be just different. It holds more weight, right? It holds more weight on an individual scale versus like everybody else, right? That's why it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't
but
really
why do you think? Do you think it's okay for me to make fun of your personal experience?
It's okay for you to make fun of my personal experience?
Yeah. Do you think I should be making fun of your personal experience?
It's a good question. I think that, I mean, if it sounds like crazy, but then you can also say, well, you can't really deny people's personal experience, right? You can't really deny it, but you can, I guess.
You can rationalize that the personal experience is, number one, not evidence. Two, could be hallucinations. Easy. I mean, someone is depressed. So you're from a Christian background, or you grew up in a Christian society or whatever, right? And then what happens? You're in a very bad stage in life. You're depressed, whatever. And then you dream about something. You wanna find a connection with God. So the first thing you think about is what you've been taught with your parents. Doesn't mean it's the truth. Doesn't make it true. Your brain trying to bring you a sense of hope, trying to take you out of this state of depression and sadness that you're in. So it's showing you something. Doesn't make it real.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
When I saw that I was flying in the air and like beams are coming out of my eyes, and I was in the sky, moving around in my dream. Is that real? I saw that in my dream. Does it mean it's real?
No.
So does it mean the personal experience is not real?
So the personal experience, it doesn't
it's true
mean
to
that,
me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's different, I would say, on an individual scale, but it doesn't make it broader truth. It can make it true for, I guess, for the personal individual, or at least
truth is not subjective. Truth is objective.
Yes, there's objective truth, of course. Yes.
Yeah, so it's either Christianity is true or not. That's an objective statement. It cannot be based on your subjective experience. It's either Islam is true or not. It cannot be based on my subjective experience.
Yes, my subjective experience doesn't make Christianity at large true now. It makes it true for me on an individual scale.
No, it doesn't make it true at all. All it does is you had an experience that misled you to thinking that this could be the truth. But it doesn't make it true. If you want to say it's true, objectively, you need to have evidence for that. So if you're essentially saying, look, there's objective truth that Islam is the truth. There's objective evidence that Islam is the truth. But I'll take my personal convoluted experience that can easily be false over that. You see how irrational that statement is?
Yeah, well, I do think there's other points that point to the Bible being true and things about Jesus being true. So I'm a big fan of the Shroud of Turin. I think the Shroud of Turin is one of the most fascinating pieces of evidence for Christ. I know there's a lot of debate on it, but I enjoy that one the most.
Like, debate is an understatement. Okay, this is the thing. Like, you're gonna find a small. How is that shroud proving anything? It doesn't prove anything. Even if I were to take it's not forgery and I'll say it's okay, it doesn't prove Christianity. It doesn't prove the Bible being from God. It doesn't prove any of that. You cannot make that connection.
No, it's not proving it. I think it's just a supporting piece.
So what proves Christianity is my question. No, what proves Christianity's truth? The Bible is from God. What proves that?
I guess it depends on what you're saying with proof, because you have to just use evidence to support something being true, right? It's not like I'm proving like 2 + 2 = 4, something like that, right? It's different.
No, no, it is, because I just gave you rational evidence for Islam being the truth.
Yes.
So I'm asking you for something similar.
Yes. So I think there's tons of history about Christ, rising from the dead outside of the Bible, as well as in.
No, where is that? Is there any eyewitness accounts that anyone who saw this happen?
We're not getting eyewitness accounts. We're getting accounts like from Tacitus to Josephus, of people who were recording.
Do you know that
claiming to see?
Yeah. So like Tacitus and Josephus, their earliest manuscripts of their writings is like the 9th century. So 900 years later, we have a manuscript of attributed writings to Josephus and Tacitus, writing what people were saying. How does that prove anything?
Well, it's supporting evidence, right?
No, I'm not asking you. It's not supporting anything, because even like I said, it's not historically reliable. And even if it was, assuming a man resurrected, God resurrected a man, like he resurrected Lazarus, doesn't mean Christianity is the truth.
So the claim
Jesus could resurrect, but God resurrected Jesus. That could be true, and at the same time, your entire book is false. Both of them can be true. So it's not supporting evidence in any way, shape, or form, because just the fact that he's resurrected doesn't mean anything, if you even have evidence for it, which you don't.
Well, I think the resurrection actually is the pivotal point, because the resurrection is essentially the grounding of the faith of Christianity, right? Because if we didn't have a resurrection, we
no, it's not.
Jews.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You need the original sin, and then you need the fact that the death was to atone for all human sins, and you need the concept of the original sin, and then you need the fact that Jesus is God himself, and then his death was the atonement. All of that, you don't prove it just by resurrection. That's why I said the resurrection can be true and your entire ideology can be false. That doesn't, there is no conflict there between the two. Basically, look, okay, Anthony, I'm just gonna ask God to guide you, man. I'm gonna let you go at this point. I'm gonna ask God to guide you. I'm gonna move on to the next person.
It's been a pleasure. God bless you.
That's all I can do. I can only ask God to guide you, because we can see in this conversation, there's no more reasoning, right? It's no more logic, it's no more common sense. I mean, and if there isn't anymore, then I cannot offer anything. I mean, that's how conversations work. That's the best I can do for you. Look, pray to God, ask God to guide you, and that's all I'm going to say to you. All right, may Allah guide you, and appreciate your mannerisms. At least I do appreciate that. I hope I didn't offend you. That wasn't the intention. Like I said, the intention is to get you to think about what you believe. It's not like to get you upset or annoyed or any of that. All right, Anthony, bye bye. Thank you for your time. See you.
See you, man.